Welcome, America and the world, to our first episode of our new video series called the Resurgence Pulse Report. I'm your host, Louise Campbell Anthony, here with the Peacekeeping Task Force for the Federation of States, that is, the United States of America Unincorporated. In this video series, I will provide perspective, historical fact, and a critical analysis of the current political landscape that gave cause for the resurgence of the American government. As we are taking the needed steps to restore our lawful government here in America, I will present to you how it is being done. The Federation of States has secured and offers to you your rightful claim to your inheritance as an American. And we ask that you join your fellow American state nationals in the work of finishing the reconstruction of our constitutionally guaranteed Republican form of government. Let me begin by introducing the perspective for this episode. Watch this short video clip of a tale called the Rip Van Winkle story.
Once upon a time, in a picturesque village nestled in the Catskill Mountains, there lived a kind-hearted and easygoing man named Rip Van Winkle. Rip was loved by everyone in the village, especially the children, for his playful spirit and gentle demeanor. However, Rip had one flaw. He was notoriously lazy when it came to work, much to the frustration of his hard-working wife, Dame Van Winkle. One crisp autumn day, seeking an escape from his wife's nagging, Rip wandered into the mountains with his loyal dog, Wolf. As he climbed higher, he encountered a group of oddly dressed men playing ninepins and drinking a mysterious beverage. Rip, always up for an adventure, joined them. After drinking some of their strange brew, he felt overwhelmingly sleepy and soon drifted off into a deep slumber. When Rip awoke, the world seemed different. His beard had grown long and white, and Wolf was nowhere to be found. Confused, he stumbled back to his village, only to find that everything had changed. The people looked different, the houses were altered, and even the sign on the inn bore a different name. Rip discovered that he had slept for 20 years. At first, the villagers were wary of this disheveled old man claiming to be Rip Van Winkle, but soon they recognized him from old tales. Rip learned that the American Revolution had taken place during his long sleep, and his village was now part of a new nation. His wife had passed away, and his children had grown up. His daughter, now married with children of her own, took him in and cared for him. Rip Van Winkle became a beloved figure in the village, telling stories of the old days and his mysterious adventure in the mountains. He spent his remaining years in peace and leisure, no longer nagged about his laziness. The tale of Rip Van Winkle became a legend, a story of a man who slept through the greatest changes in history but awoke to find his place in a new and welcoming world.
The historical relevance of the Rip Van Winkle story is that for 160 years, the American people have been asleep. Americans don't know their own government and barely know their own laws anymore because we have been lulled to sleep and misinformed. And like Rip Van Winkle, we are all waking up with a lot to learn. Now, since the so-called American Civil War, America has been under an illegal mercenary occupation and continuing throughout history with World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, Operation Desert Storm, Iraqi War, war in Ukraine. None of these, nor any of the like since 1861, were wars at all. They were, in fact, illegal mercenary conflicts. America has not been at war since 1815, so the law of war does not even apply to these. Let me explain how do we know this. We have the proof that this military protectorate that we are under was a tactical maneuver instigated by two competing commercial companies. We can prove it by the fact that no Congress actually declared a war. We can prove it by the fact that no actual peace process and peace treaty was issued to finalize the end of this war. We can prove it from the muster rolls of the soldiers that were inducted into the service during the so-called Civil War was signed up to fight for the state of New York, the state of North Carolina. We can prove it from the fact that the Southern states called themselves the Confederate States of America and acted as Confederate states throughout, meaning states of states, meaning commercial companies. So when the history books tell you the South seceded from the Union, this Union, quote unquote, actually refers to the Union of Confederate States of America, which you know as the Confederation. That included the state of New York, the state of North Carolina, the state of Massachusetts. This is the Union formed under the Articles of Confederation, not the actual states of the Union. You know as New York, North Carolina, Massachusetts. The Confederation in today's perspective is like a chamber of commerce, a partnership of business organizations. So when the history books also tell you that the so-called American Civil War was over slavery, we can prove that it wasn't. The British government and its British peers had invested heavily in the Egyptian cotton industry and more or less direct competition with the American cotton producers, and they were losing the contest, despite the fact that the Egyptian cotton was far closer to the European markets that the British hoped to dominate. As a result, the American cotton producers had to be shut down, regulated, so that the European market for the British-backed Egyptian cotton could take over. So not unreasonably, the American cotton-producing states objected. The so-called American Civil War was the result of this. It had nothing to do with slavery. It was not even a war. It was a commercial mercenary conflict staged on our shores by British-backed territorial government corporations against the dissenting members of the States of America, which sought to leave that original Confederation and form their own. So we can prove that the British Crown sided with the Northern Confederate States and the Roman papacy sided with the Southern Confederate States as a tactical maneuver to fight over who will gain the commercial advantage in the Egyptian cotton trade market. That is what the conflict was really about, not a war at all. But that's not a storyline that you can incite Americans to fight over, now can you? A secret treaty was signed in 1822 called the Treaty of Verona. The Pope and the British monarch back then authored and signed the secret Treaty of Verona, admitting that our form of government was antithetical to their form of government and agreeing secretly to undermine us in breach of trust to the constitutional contracts that they held with us. Now, a later document called the Declaration of Interdependence of the Governments in the United States was signed in 1937 between these same parties. This document here is the Declaration of Interdependence of the Governments in the United States, signed in 1937 between the Roman Municipal United States government, that's the Pope, and the British Territorial United States of America government, that's the British Crown. These two parties created this contract, a vicious collusion against the American government. Now, on its face, it appears to be a collaboration with our American states. However, by this time, our American government was effectively usurped back since 1861. You see, these two governments have historically been in partnership with each other for a long time to share in the commercial profit. The Pope gets 60% and the British Crown gets 40% of the commercial profits that they can siphon off of the American people. In the mid-1800s, they incorporated commercial franchises that would provide the governmental services that they themselves were obligated to provide to the American government. according to the treaty negotiations and the constitutional contracts that ended the American Revolutionary War, also known as the War for Independence. Why did they do this? For bankruptcy protection, to pass off their commercial debt obligations onto the American people and evade their own commercial liability. We have the evidence of 2 incorporated commercial government franchises that have played the good cop, bad cop theater right in front of our faces for over 160 years, and even the world for that matter. Franchise number 1 is the Roman Municipal Corporation, called, in all capital letters, United States Incorporated. Let me show you this document. This document is issued by the White House in Washington, D.C. on May 4th, 2020. At the bottom is signed by CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the, all capital letters, United States, Donald J. Trump. This is evidence of the bankrupt United States Corporation, admitting to the fact that they borrowed our gold and identifying the American people as the true creditors. Now, with this capital P, that refers to our American state citizens who had a contractual agreement under the Constitution of the United States with them. It's a debt substitution racket. Both the Roman Municipal IRS and the British Territorial Internal Revenue Service are right in the middle of it, according to this document, as the enforcers of the Roman Municipal United States, all capital, Incorporation. They were hired by the United States of America, Incorporated British government, to collect quote unquote war reparations in the form of taxes as a consequence of the South losing the commercial battle over the Egyptian cotton trade market. This is how these 2 commercial government franchises have contrived to indebt us and our assets and dump off all of their spending, meaning their commercial spending and costs, onto us. Now let's move on to the second government franchise. Now, to verify the second government franchise, if you do a Google search in your browser with this link, this is what you'll find. Here is the name of the corporation, the United States of America. What type of entity is it? It is a British Crown corporation. That's who it was registered with. Where is it located? Washington, D.C. And what is it? It's a government. This is the evidence of the second franchise government corporation that's in Washington, D.C. While they are trying to make you believe that there is a corrupt municipal corporation of 1871 located in Washington, D.C., the truth is there are 2. This British Crown parent corporation remains in play today. It is attempting to use its partner, the bankrupted Roman Municipal Corporation, as the fall guy for the corruption, deep state of affairs that has been plaguing America for decades. But not so. You have to go back further than that to know the truth. You did hear me say business partners, right? Go read those agreements, the Secret Treaty of Verona of 1822 and the 1937 Declaration of Interdependence of the governments of the United States to verify for yourself what this partnership was made of. All government services in America are franchised by 2 government service parent corporations. That is, our federal government services, state government services, county government services, city and village government services, and township government services. When I say all, I mean all. These 2 government services franchises had a bankruptcy scheme grand finale planned in 2007. The municipal government, doing business as United States Incorporated, intended to spin itself into oblivion, declare bankruptcy, and saddled the Americans with all of its debts for the next 500 years. Worse, they intended to foreclose on all of our estates and make false claims on abandonment, allowing their secondary creditors to come in here and seize on all of our lands and our homes and conscript us into forced labor to pay off their private debts. And to put frosting on the cake of this betrayal of trust, the then president, Barack Hussein Obama, not only bankrupted the United States Incorporated as planned, but he also bankrupted the United States of America Incorporated, the territorial government, leaving no federal corporation in charge of providing any government services. When they bankrupted the United States Parent Corporation and the United States of America Parent Corporation franchise, they also bankrupted its franchisees. All the federal agencies, all the states of states, state of New York, state of North Carolina, all of the counties and the villages, all of the cities, and even the Seste KV Trust that they had set up in all of our names. They intended to simply change their doing business as names, make claims on abandonment, and inherit it all. So what they couldn't do by force, they fully intended to take by fraud and deceit with these bogus bankruptcy actions and bogus probate processes. There was just one thing in their way: the American people. The plot to take over America and even the entire world, to enter it into a new era of enslavement and commercial feudalism, thrusting it back into the new dark ages, was underway. It could only succeed as long as Americans failed to come forward and stay asleep. America was on the brink of no return. Beginning in 2007 and continuing more or less unabated through 2015, this master plan was afoot until it was thwarted in November 2015. The American government took action to fill in the gap and foresaw this outcome. The head of state for the unincorporated United States of America, the real government, James Clinton Belcher, contracted with the Lakota Sioux Nation and its hereditary chief, Laverne Fasthorse, and the Athabascan Nation in Alaska and its hereditary chief, Michael Stephen Young, to become the new federal service partners. As a precaution, Belcher also issued new sovereign letters patent as well as a joint declaration of sovereignty with these new federal partners, the Athabascans and the Lakota Sioux, upholding the Declaration of Independence and expanding it to include all Americans. Now, when the history books tells you that the American government killed off the natives to steal their land, we can prove that we didn't. Chief Fasthorse asked the question, when, where, why did I lose my land to these immigrants? How else did they acquire land, and from whom, other than by genocide? We returned a question. Who exactly committed genocide against your people? Now, the history books told you this. Watch this short video clip.
But new challenges arise as the nation pushes to expand its boundaries. On the southern frontier, fighting flares with the Seminole Indians. A force led by General Andrew Jackson pushes them south and establishes a tense peace. Jackson becomes president in 1828 and works for the passage of the Indian Removal Act. The act orders Native Americans living east of the Mississippi River to move to Indian Territory by 1838. American forces mobilize while some natives prepare resistance. In the Illinois Territory, militia troops defeat the Sauk Indians in the Black Hawk War. Future President Abraham Lincoln is among the militiamen. Continuing Seminole resistance to removal policies sparks a fierce war between 1835 and 1842. In other areas, most notably in the Cherokee Nation, the presence of the Army is enough to enforce compliance.
As seen in this video clip, the push to move westward by the President Andrew Jackson, passing the Indian Removal Act, marked the genocidal actions of a British territorial president of the United States of America, Incorporated. All presidents after and including George Washington has only ever served as a municipal CEO in the United States, in the office of the President of the United States. They could even choose to occupy the municipal office of the president or the territorial office of the President of the United States and Commander-in-Chief, or both simultaneously. This arrangement was according to their partnership agreements that we mentioned before. What the history books that you learned from in school did not tell you is this. You see this chart? This is a chart of how our American government structure was set up at the beginning. There is an American government and there is a United States government. According to this chart, there are 6 offices of the presidency. The history books didn't tell you that. It told you that there was a president of the United States. The last president for our American government was Charles Wilson in 1872. So which president committed genocide against the native nations? It was the president of the United States of America, Incorporated. The American government cannot be accused of acquiring land by genocide. We did it the old-fashioned way, by 8 long years of fully declared war against the British Empire, which had established treaties and paid money and practiced genocide and done a whole lot of unscrupulous things for 200 years prior to the War of Independence, which our government fought and won for the benefit of all the native nations and all Americans born here on this soil forevermore. Now, the real defeat of the native nations in war came prior to our fight with the British Empire. Their war, the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, that took place prior to the War of Independence, 1776 to 1783. The French and their native nation allies fought the British Empire for 9 long years, but lost. The American government fought them for 8 long years, and finally won it all back from the British Empire for all Americans that's born here and for all the native nations that was already here. So the answer to Chief Fast Horse's question, the native nations lost land via warfare, and basically all known native claims as well as all French claims were extinguished by the French and Indian War, which has also included the settlement in Canada. Winning the American Revolution with our native allies was for the benefit of us both. The native nations had suffered hundreds of years of constant warfare over hunting territory and raids and capture of their own cousins. By the establishing of the American states and its population into nation states, created defined and agreed upon geographical borders, which is a requirement in international law. This lack of settled borders that was subject to hunting season and various tribal agreements ended under the Northwest Ordinance. This could have brought peace to the native nations if it wasn't for the British territorial president, Andrew Jackson. It was the European monarchs and European commercial corporations and European municipal corporations, not the immigrants, that did the dirt to us all. So what has to be corrected is the right of all living people to live on this land and soil of this great country we call America. There are no quarrels on our American government's part, now or ever. All people born here on the land and soil of America have all the same rights as any other American, which we won honorably through warfare against the British Empire for both the natives and the immigrants. We are set upon a path to correct the errors of history and clean up the disgusting mess in Washington, D.C. Your rightful and lawful American government has been brought into session, anticipating these events just in time to fill the void of the one government service corporation closing down shop, and the second continuing to conceal the real issue, being that they are business partners, acting as the Roman municipal office of the President of the United States and the British territorial office of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. With the United States Incorporated being defunct, there is no President of the United States office that exists to be elected into. Do you know what a red herring is? A red herring is a misleading piece of information or a distracting argument used to divert attention from the real issue. Let me show you an example of a red herring. These documents that I show here are an example of a red herring. These two documents were disseminated all over the internet during 2020 and 2021 to prove that the CEO bankrupted the United States Corporation of 1871 in Washington, D.C. Now, the misleading pieces of information here is that the bankrupted United States Incorporated Corporation filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. This particular corporation filed a Chapter 11. Now, the difference is with a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, you can reorganize your organization, pay down some of the debts, and salvage the rest of the company. Now, the United States of America Incorporated, that corporation is in a Chapter 11, and it's reorganizing right now in front of our faces. The other misleading piece of information here is that this corporation is called United States Corporation Company, has a different name. The United States Corporation Company has a different article of incorporation. Let me show you theirs. The actual incorporation papers for this company is this. Articles of Incorporation, July of 1925. It says here, United States Corporation Company. This particular incorporation document does not name Donald J. Trump as the CEO. You see how this is a red herring trying to lead you away from the actual issue here? The actual issue here is that there are two corporations in Washington, D.C. One filed a Chapter 7, the Municipal United States, all cap, Incorporated, and it's defunct, dead and gone, not coming back. And the second, the Territorial British United States of America, Incorporated, is still hanging on by a thread in Chapter 11 reorganization bankruptcy. Watch for a red herring thrown at you during the 2028 corporate United States presidential elections coming up to distract you from this real issue. So will the election be for the President of the United States that no longer exists? We have the facts, we have the knowledge, we have the history, we have the law, and we have the right to call the British Territorial United States government on the carpet for all of this. Going forward, the world will witness the American government's resurgence. Our lawful and rightful American government that was established in 1776, then usurped in 1861, was restored in 1998, and summoned into session in 2019. We have awakened. Your States of the Union assemblies remain in session today. It has taken many years of historical research and volunteer service to learn how our American government was originally constructed, so we can fully, properly, and permanently reconstruct it. The American government has to be run by Americans, not Brits, not Papists. Are you going to become a part of your American government's resurgence? I hope you all enjoyed our first episode of the Resurgence Post Report. I want to hear your comments, your thoughts. Leave them in the comment section below, your questions. My reference notes are in the description below for you to research the facts a little deeper than what I presented here. I invite you to meet me back here on the next episode of the Resurgence Post Report. Until next time.